right, so we're gonna work a little bit differently today. I've been working on coming up with a better pedagogical method for teaching these classes that's rooted in a better neurological body-brain connection to help you work on identifying the parts of punches and of other boxing activities that you can use kind of as an anchor for understanding how to move, when to move, etc. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a simple combination, and we're going to do it under pristine circumstances. You're going to throw one punch at a time, and we're going to basically go through a crawl, walk, run, increase in difficulty, and we're going to test your capacity over the course of the first half of the class. Then we're going to try to do a direct translation of those skills into partner drills. So the first thing you're going to throw is 1, 2, 3, 2. And I want you to throw each punch individually. That doesn't mean I want you to throw them slow. I want you to throw the punch vigorously and with effort, stepping into the jab, rotating on the 2, rotating on the 3, rotating on the second 2. But I want you to do each one individually. Does that make sense? Throw the 1, throw the 2, throw the 3, throw the 2. All right? Make sense? All right. We're going to go nice and slow. Try to make each movement precise and consistent. All right, go. Time. All right, so why do you think we threw each punch individually?
So we can concentrate on the movement.
Concentrate on the movement. All right, when you throw the jab, what are some of the responses that your body gives you when you do it correctly? Power. That's good, right? You'll feel the bag move. How do you know that you're hitting with power? What's another way to identify it? Sound. Very good, right? It's a pop instead of a thud. When it thuds or it doesn't make a sound, it's probably because you're pushing it, which means you're not retracting the hand or you're not generating enough force to begin with. All right, so identifying the things that you can control. When you throw a jab, what do you do with your lead foot? You step. When you throw a straight, what are the things you should concentrate on?
Rotation.
Rotation. What else?
Keeping the weight on the back foot.
Keeping the weight on the back foot. What else?
Getting your hand back to your face.
Getting your hand back to your face. Good. The squat, when you hit the apex of the punch, is another one. And lastly, keeping the elbow down and rotating the fist. One of the reasons that I teach, the exaggerated form that I teach, is so that you can have things to identify. That means every time you throw it, you can cultivate consistency. One of the things that a lot of people fail to train is consistency, because when you can throw a thing consistently under ideal circumstances, you can take those circumstances and remove them into different circumstances and still throw the punch as close to correctly as possible. So now we're going to work on another combination, and I want you to focus on what the feedback mechanisms are. We're going to throw 1, 2, 3, 6, 5. And I want you to do the same thing you just did. Throw each punch individually. We just covered the different feedback mechanisms of the 2. I want you to think about 1, 2, 3, 6, 5. And while you're doing it, each punch, consider what the feedback mechanisms are, what you know I'm going to say about those feed mechanisms, i.e., squat, turn, lift for an uppercut, and I want you to try to apply those as best as you physically and mentally can while you're going through it. 1, 2, 3, 6, 5, focusing on the individual punches. Ready, go. Okay, so, what did we learn about feedback going through those last 2 drills? Who has something that immediately stuck out to them?
Your balance.
Balance. Oh, balance is a great one.
You should every punch lead into your next punch without falling out.
Exactly. Very good. Being able to string punches together means that sometimes different punches have different balance requirements. And you have to be able to tie those balance requirements in a smooth transition from one punch to another punch. Now, how does that translate to the rest of the activity? A big part of that is being able to translate from offense to defense, defense to offense in managing transitions, which we just had a couple classes on last week. So, that being the case, what punches do you feel like give you the most feedback? And we're going to go over what feedback is here in a second. Hooks, that's a good one. That's a good one. That was the first punch that helped me understand that I needed to be looking for feedback when I was learning how to punch. What else? Uppercuts. All right, so the thing with uppercuts is that because you're changing elevation, if you're throwing a good uppercut, what's going to happen is if you have bad balance, you're going to find out immediately whether or not you have bad foot positioning or whether you're leaning. So that's the feedback. The feedback mechanisms in this case are what starts to deviate when you do things in the punch. So for some of you, you have a tendency to lean when you throw uppercuts or when you throw rear hooks. And what happens is your rear foot will be too in line with your lead foot. When you throw the hook, you'll start to lean and you'll fall over. Some of you, I know, because that happens, will throw the hook and then hold it because you're holding yourself up and you try to hide it. I know, I can see it, I can tell. So, that being the case, the feedback mechanisms are whether or not the punch changes when you change something. So, in this case, if you lose your balance, if the sound changes, if it feels different, if something hurts, right? Those are the feedback mechanisms. Why are those important? Well, those are important for building consistency. You want to work on doing it the exact same way every time. And that's why I teach the exaggerated punches that I teach. I want you to be able to understand that if it feels different, it's because you're doing something different. And why do we want consistency when we're throwing punches? And why do we want consistency in things over time in our lives?
Because we want to get better.
All right, you want to get better? Okay.
So you can win. So you can win.
All right. More specifically, you want to be consistent because it gives you a way of measuring success. More importantly than just like specifically achieving success. When you throw punches consistently, you can make them better or you can make them worse, right? It's like success and failure are both habits. Whichever one you capitalize on is the one that takes hold. So we want it to be the same way every time, which is why I give you these feedback measurements, right? I tell you, if you lean, you're going to come off balance, you're going to fall. Well, is that just in boxing? No, that's in life too. All right. So like when you're just walking, right? Maintaining good locomotion means you have to have space between your feet. Stuff like that. Find parts of the movement that provide feedback you can feel. So we talked about that in the jab. The step, turning the fist over while keeping the elbow down. When you throw the rear hand, turning the foot. You keep the elbow down, you rotate the fist from the wrist and the forearm. When you're throwing an uppercut, you squat, turn, and you lift. All of those things, you know whether you're going up and down. You know whether you're leaning. You know whether you're throwing the punch correctly because the sound tells you. Focus on all those things. If you have to, do it excruciatingly slow. Because the more you slow it down, the more you can concentrate on the individual things that divide your attention. And we know that in this particular population, dividing attention makes it hard. Make sure that your coach or student can identify all of these things. So while you're going through this process, if you have trouble identifying measurements, let me know. And then once it's consistent under ideal conditions, we change the conditions to rebuild the consistency. Because if you could do it in ideal conditions, that's part of the equation. But I need you to be able to take this and translate it to your outside lives, right? So that you walk better, you move better, you have better balance. So now what we're going to do is we're going to grab some water, grab a partner, and we're going to do a little bit more intensive drilling than we normally do. And it's going to focus on balance and throwing punches on the move with a partner. All right? All right, go ahead and grab water, grab your partner. Yeah, exactly. All right, so first thing we're going to do is we're just going to get in front of our partner. And we're just going to, and y'all are going to laugh, I want you to shuffle your weight back and forth like this. And I want you to try to get in rhythm with your partner. Now, if you can't get your feet to move like this, just rock back and forth.
This is a good song.
Yeah, good song to do it to. And the reason we do this is because there's a big part of fighting in any context, with a sword, a kick, a punch, is being in rhythm and then disrupting that rhythm. But you have to have a rhythm to disrupt first, right? So for the next couple minutes, we're just going to do this. And then as you get comfortable, when you realize that you're in sync, you're going to move, right? And what we're going to do is we're going to maintain distance. So if he backs up, I'm going to follow him. I back up. He's going to follow me. And as soon as we get to a more static position, we're going to start making sure that our bodies continue moving. Make sense? All right, give it a whirl. If you feel silly, good. We all need a little more of that in our lives. Borrow you for a second. All right, so like some of the things that came up, somebody says, hey, it's really hard for us to move together and maintain the rhythm. Yeah, that's hard to do. That's hard for fighters who've been fighting for 20 years to do. It's a thing that if you don't practice it consistently, you're never going to be able to do it. So that's why we're going to introduce things like that. Because being able to find a rhythm is crucial for fighting because it means you can find a rhythm and then break it. But also it's important for life because if you want to have a consistent gait while you're walking, part of that is having a rhythm to your step. How many of you get interrupted by a festination or by the worry of balance, and then your gait gets messed up, and then you trip? Right? That's a big thing, right? I would argue almost all of you, if not all of you. So while we take these things into consideration, we have to keep this in mind that there are wider implications for every bit of information we're covering. And I've been making a deliberate effort to ensure that we cover that more consistently, right? I need to be a more consistent trainer. So now what we're going to do is we're going to work on some of these offensive and defensive principles we've been covering for the last couple months. So we're going to get into our rhythm. We're not going to change range yet, but I'm going to use my rhythm. See, I'm automatically coming off of his rhythm. That's what happens when you do this a lot, right? You get into a rhythm and then you purposefully come off of it. We're going to link up our rhythm. We're not going to step yet, but I'm going to throw a jab, and he's going to do the catch parry. You guys remember the catch? Yep. Where you go like this, you light the match on your chin. So you see we're in rhythm. My punch is going to come out in rhythm, just like that. Now he's going to throw his. He's going to throw a jab because he's not an idiot. There we go. See that? That looks complicated, doesn't it? Yeah. That's the foundation of all fighting with another human being. So, one of the things that'll help is make it consistent. Forward, back, punch. The other person, forward, back, punch. Right? You don't have to do it that many times, but just think about it, what's comfortable for you. If you got to go forward, back, punch, that's fine. Doesn't matter, right? But come up with a rhythm and use that rhythm to throw a jab. The other partner is just going to catch, wait until they're comfortable, and then use their rhythmic movement to come into their jab. Make sense?
Doing jab straight, catch
just a jab. Just a jab. And then that jab, his left hand is being caught by my right hand. If we're southpaws, my right hand is being caught by his left hand. Make sense? All right.
Can you do a parry in slow motion? Let me see what you're doing.
All right. All I'm doing, nice slow jab. This. And what happens here, I'm not stopping it forward, I'm bumping it to the side. And what a lot of you are going to do is paw. Don't paw. No elbow. Or swat like this. No elbow. Wrist. See what I'm doing? What's happening with my forearm?
Nothing.
Thank you. Nothing. Right? Doesn't matter how hard he throws his jab. Throw a stiff jab. Look, nothing. He was in range. If that had made contact, that would have been uncomfortable. Right? All you got to do is this. And you take the punch from landing here and push it to here. Remember, this is a game of inches.
Okay, so you're not deflecting the
All I'm doing is turning my wrist. I don't know how else I can articulate that besides.
So in a real match, like for you guys,
That's exactly what you do.
you've got this rhythm down.
Yep.
The one who steps out of the rhythm and
Yep, that's exactly what you try to do.
You try
Break
to
the
purposely
rhythm.
disrupt that.
You purposefully disrupt the rhythm. But I can't get you there until I get you to get in rhythm. So, go ahead. You got your marching orders. Give it a try. All right, so everybody bring it in. Bring it in. We're going to cover some of the stuff that we just went over there because there was a lot of really good questions, and I think there was some pretty good aha moments in there. All right, so who found that drill extremely difficult? Raise your hand. Okay, so part of that is cultivating an internal sense of rhythm. You have to have your own set of like rhythmic understanding, your own rhythmic sense. But then what happens when you have somebody else is there's going to be varying degrees of compromise of your internal sense of rhythm. So what happens is I could do this with myself very easily, right? Because I have my own internal sense of rhythm and I've been a drummer for 30 years. So when you introduce another person, well, now there's micro variations. A good boxer or a good Muay Thai fighter or a good even jiu-jitsu person and wrestler, right? Grappler, striker, doesn't matter. When it comes to understanding combat and combat sports, disrupting rhythm is a fundamental element of that, right? If you look on the other side of this board, might be upside down, you'll see that there is one of the key tenets of operational things that we do is disrupt. And a disrupting action is different from a deterring action because a deterring action stops them from doing something. A disrupting action is they've already begun the action and now you're screwing it up for them. So what Janet, I think it was, asked was while they were doing the drill, she said, well, do you disrupt to throw the jab? You disrupt your mutual rhythm. When you're fighting, yes. When you're doing this drill, no. Because what we're working on is navigating the two different sets of rhythm. Does that make sense? Yeah. You have to be able to share your sense of rhythm, and then you impose your rhythm on your opponent. Now, why do you think this is important for outside of boxing and outside of this class? Balance. So the other thing is you're compromised on one side or the other while you're doing this. Somebody asked me to do a fight breakdown the other day of Ilya Topuria and Volkanovski. And one of the things that one of the fighters did was when his opponent rocked off of his front foot, so when he rocked back, he kicked his leg. And you know what happened? That. And it happened 6 times, damn near in a row. It's because he saw the rhythm, and he saw the timing, and he seized the initiative.
Is that legal?
Yeah, well, not in boxing, but it was an MMA fight.
Okay.
Now, and when you're walking, you come up with a rhythm.
Almost to detriment.
Right? Almost to your detriment, because what happens when it gets disrupted? You stub your toe, right? Or you hit, even on this floor, some of it's uneven, and then you trip, right? If you work on cultivating your sense of rhythm, and then you work on deliberately disrupting it, you know what happens? Recovery versus cataclysm. So that's why this is important. If we're going to help you start working on fall prevention, when you stub your toe, you stutter step, you festinate, now all of a sudden we're working on your timing to help you work on fall aversion or abatement. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, very good. I know these classes are hard and some of the stuff we're doing is very hard, but you're all executing it brilliantly. So thank you for your dedication to paying attention. So at this time, go ahead and take off your gloves and get ready for the next class.